Okay, so I'm going to switch gears now. I had mentioned that I was planning on sharing some stories from my life before I decided to post the last two um, videos about the Bible, which also is a piece of my life story. Um, One of the reasons that I began studying religion, uh, spirituality, etc., was because I had had a lot of experiences that I didn't know what to do with. They were definitely experiences that you could call paranormal, uh, ghostly. Um, there are a lot of adjectives that I could use, but in truth, I don't know what to call or label a lot of these experiences. They just kind of happened. Um, I've had experiences that happened with other people where they saw or heard or experienced the same thing, which helps the credibility factor a little bit just in my own head so that I don't think I'm crazy. Um, this story that I'm going to share right now, um, I was alone when I experienced this, and so I could be crazy. This could be crazy talk, but I'm going to share it. And I'm going to share this one because I had shared it with my son, who when I had mentioned it to him, and he told me I never told him this story, and I was sure that I had. Um, and after I told him the full story and we talked a little bit about it, he agreed that I should probably put it on YouTube. And I said, yeah, I should put a lot of these stories on YouTube. And I'm finally getting around to it, right? So this is a story, and I thought about starting from the beginning, from when I was real little, things that I had seen or heard or whatnot. But I'm kind of starting in the middle. I was 20 years old when this story started, and this is about a friend of mine who passed away. His name was Shannon Rogers. He went by Shay. Uh, when I was 20 years old, my neighbor offered me a job um, at DFW Airport in Dallas, uh, picking up trash from restaurants and shops and whatnot, in the terminals. And I took the job because I needed money. And as I was, going from place to place, I ended up at Frullati, and I ended up being offered a job at Frullati by the manager, who was Shannon Shay. Uh, the first thing I'll tell you about him is that he wasn't quite like anybody I'd ever met in my life. First of all, he was a black dude with a bleached blonde mohawk. How often do you see that? You don't. I remember when I first met him, he reminded me of, if anybody knows who Fishbone is, Angelo Moore was the vocalist sax player in Fishbone, and he was a black dude that had a bleached blonde mohawk at one point anyway. I think he's bald now. But Shannon didn't look like Angelo, much bigger. Shannon was one of the biggest dudes I ever met. I'm not sure how tall he was. I'm guessing 6'5", maybe 6'6". I know that we were eating crackers and canned cheese, in my kitchen one night, and he was tall enough to put a little piece of cheese on his finger and wipe it on my ceiling, and it stayed there for a long time until we moved out of the house. I think that little piece of cheese was on the ceiling. But anyway, I met Shannon. He offered me this job at Frullati, which seemed at the time better than picking up trash throughout the terminal. So I took the job. Shortly thereafter, I became friends with him, and managing Frullati was his day job. His night job was working as a bouncer, security at the Lizard Lounge in Dallas. And shortly after I began working there, he invited me out. He was, I was 20. I couldn't drink at the time, but he was like, "No, you can. I'll introduce you to the bartenders. I'll get you in free if you come hang out. And, they'll serve you alcohol." So I used to go hang out at the Lizard Lounge while he was bouncing. We'd drive out there together, and I'd get in, like he said. I got in, and I'd sit at the bar and I'd have drinks. One of the most interesting things I saw when I was there, I remember going up to the upper deck balcony-like area, and I saw a fight break out. I'm not a big dancer myself. So I would kind of hang out and talk to people. And I was looking over the balcony one evening, and a fight broke out. And I watched Shay walk through the crowd. And like I said, this was a big dude. And I've never seen anything like this in my life. I watched him part the sea of people like it was nothing, first of all. And he got, to these two guys that were going at it. And I remember he grabbed each of them like right here by their shirts, and he kind of like went like that and like that. And remember, I'm looking at it from the top. So I got this view of him going bam, bam. And I watched him pull these guys apart and just push them like that. And I watched the crowd of people on the dance floor in each direction just get basically pushed over with this dude's strength. It was like, what? It was insane. For such a strong dude, he was a very gentle guy. He was very soft-spoken. Man, I guess there's a lot I could say about him, but this video is already at 8 minutes and 40 seconds. So I'll get into this part, which is most relevant to my strange experience. Shay was very into vampire novels, Anne Rice type stuff. I had never read anything like that. He gave me a copy of Memnoch the Devil that I still have. Interestingly, after talking to me about religion and whatnot, he was like, "Man, you'd like this one, and it's kind of hard to know like what else to say about him. Just an interesting guy, a very unique guy. Certainly wasn't trying to be part of any group or follow any kind of a trend. He was his own dude, man. And anyway, so I ended up quitting Frullati after, I don't know, little under a year working there, and I moved to Austin with a friend of mine, and met a girl. Came back to the Dallas area, and I remember calling him up, and we had planned to hang out for the 4th of July, and that didn't work out. And we didn't talk for a few months, and I called him up one day, and this was in 2001. I called his cell phone, and somebody answered, and I didn't know who it was, and they didn't know who I was, and I remember they questioned me, and I said, I'm looking for Shannon Rogers, and they were like, who's this? Who are you? You know. And after I guess I told them enough to let them know that I knew him, the guy ended up telling me that he was his brother, and that he had passed away a few weeks before this call. And apparently he had diabetes and didn't know it, and he had a sore throat. He went to a local clinic, and they told him he had strep throat, and they gave him, I guess, some medicine and told him to drink a lot of juice. And I know him, he didn't go to Whole Foods or buy a juicer. He probably went and bought Ocean Spray and, you know, very sugary processed juice. And he probably downed a lot of it because he was a big boy, man. And he went into Shy went into a diabetic coma, and died a week later. And so when I heard this, I remember my initial physical response was to go take a walk. And I went and I took a walk, and I thought about my friend, you know. And I came back to my car, which was pulled into my driveway, and it was at that point that I started remembering, you know, kind of his almost obsession with vampire novels. And not only vampire novels, this guy believed in vampires. Like, he really did. I remember people would come through, you know, because we're working in the airport. People would come through, and he would point people out that he thought were vampires. And sometimes it was pretty convincing. I remember there was this lady that walked through one time, and it looked like she had had a lot of plastic surgery, but it was weird. Like, it was weird plastic surgery. And all plastic surgery is kind of weird, you know. Very rarely do you see somebody who's had a lot of plastic surgery on their face and it looks normal, right? So this woman already kind of struck me as odd, and I was working up there, you know, by the register and making smoothies and whatnot by myself. But he had been kind of like, he had the door cracked and he was checking it out, and she had like this strange smell to her. Like, it was just something I picked up when I was talking to her and giving her what she asked for. And I remember he walked up and he was like, did you smell her? Could you tell? I was like, dude, what? He said, she was, I'm telling you, man, she was a vampire. And so, you know, I took my walk, and I came back to my car, and I leaned up against the car, kind of like this, left side on the trunk. And I was facing the sunset, and the sun was going down. It was like twilight, you know, like it was still light in the sky, but hardly. And in this moment, I was thinking about his vampire shit. No, I live in the Dallas, Texas area, right? And I've seen little bats here and there in the parking lot of the mall. My brother, who lives in Carrollton, a few times we've been swimming in his pool, and we'll see a little bat, but usually they're small. They're, you know, tiny little bats. While I'm leaning against my car, and thinking about him and his vampire stuff, a bat flew right, like it came from behind me. Mind you, I'm looking into the sunset, and flew by my head. I'm telling you, it was so close. If I had known it was coming and I had just gone whoop, I would have touched it. But this wasn't a small bat. This was a big fucking bat. This was a Batman, and not a Batman, but a Batman. Um, and I watched it. I watched it fly off into the distance. Nothing like that's ever happened to me in my life. I've never seen a bat that size. Um, and the sheer chances of that bat flying by my head, right? Like I heard the wings flap. It scared the shit out of me initially. And as I looked into the distance, I was just like, it was one of those moments where I was, was sad, but I was also, all of a sudden, I was in awe and just, what's the right word? In awe. It was magical. There was a magic about that moment, and so that's that story. Um, and for a while, it made me think: is this proof that vampires are real? And then I talked to some other people. I've shared this story a few times, and someone said, "Well, no. When you see something like that, it's a verification that the person is telling you that they're okay on the other side, right?" I don't know what the truth is of that experience. I don't claim to know, but I know that it made me feel maybe a little sliver of hope, right? Maybe there is something worth looking into when it comes to the other side and after death, and all of these mysteries that we don't have answers to. So yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it at that. That's it's a piece of my experience with Shannon Rogers. You guys have a good night.